All right, here we go, y'all. So Stephen Miller is, believe it or not, one of the most loathsome members of the Trump administration, or as we should call it, because it's true, the Trump regime at this point, because they're going full authoritarian. And he's the guy, he was like the mastermind, I use that term loosely, behind a lot of the anti-immigrant policies in the first term, but also in the second term. So look, if I had to guess, I would say the idea of sending immigrants to Guantanamo Bay, that probably came from Stephen Miller. It probably did. And remember, who are they sending there? There's zero evidence these are like violent criminals. So they're sending run-of-the-mill undocumented immigrants there. No due process, no habeas corpus, no recourse. This is a crime against humanity, wildly illegal, wildly unconstitutional. But they plow ahead. So he went on CNN, and he's going to get grilled a little bit here, particularly around the Doge cuts. You're about to witness a mental breakdown. Watch how his energy does not at all match the energy of the host, right? She's like calm and just like asking the most reasonable questions in the world, and he starts to absolutely flip out. Now, what's funny is we live in the Twilight Zone, so conservatives saw this, and MAGA saw this, and they were like, oh my God, he owned her, bro. He pwned her, bro. Epic own, bro. Let's post it on 4chan, bro. But in reality, as you're about to see, this is humiliating. Here we go.
So there are military members of the Guard and Reserve. They are protected by law from being fired from their day job while they're deployed. I have learned that at one agency, an employee who's actually currently deployed with the military has been notified they've been fired. Does your administration understand who actually makes up this workforce that they're dismantling?
I'm sorry, I'm confused by your question. Is your question, does the president have the authority to fire a member of the U.S. military?
This is someone who is a federal employee and is currently deployed, who has government protection. As I'm sure you're aware,
there's
there are
a lot
laws
of
protecting that.
I don't know what laws you're referring to. I would love for you to be more specific. So far, you're not telling me the employee, the agency,
Uniformed
the
Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act. It's well known by HR in the federal government and in private industry as well.
So, okay, so you're saying that the president, in your view...
Oh, yeah? Well, why don't you name the specific law that's being violated? And she's like, it's this law, it's Section 3, subsection A, and it says the following... Just totally, like, just demolished. Okay, here we go.
Doesn't have the authority to recall a member of the armed forces who may or may not, again, I'm the first time hearing of this, that may or may not be serving overseas?
Stephen, you understand how the Guard and Reserve work. They have a day job, and then when they're activated, they deploy. While they deploy,
right, but
that
your
employment
question,
is protected by law.
Your question is lacking in so much detail. I promise you I'm trying to follow your question. Are you asking me if the president has the authority to remove a member of the military who may be serving overseas?
Question.
Is that your question?
No, my question was...
Okay, well, I don't know how much airtime you want to spend on this, but I'm not following your question.
Well, I think it's an important one. I guess I'll determine how much airtime I spend on it, but does your administration understand who is in the federal workforce?
Yes, we have such a broad question. Of course we understand who's in the federal workforce. And I'm happy to indulge all of these very histrionic questions about anyone who may or may not be fired.
That it's 30% veterans?
But I think that
How are these histrionic questions when she's like citing specific examples of people who were fired who shouldn't have been? That's not histrionic. That's empirical. It's like it just happened.
And that you have people who are deployed?
The U.S. government has $36 trillion in debt. The interest payments on the debt exceed the national defense budget. The American people are exhausted and tired of watching their tax dollars be corruptly spent, abused, wasted, and in every sense robbed and stolen from them. This president, for the first time in history, is committed to restoring accountability at every level of the federal government. You may assert there's no waste in the Pentagon. You may assert there's no waste in
Stephen,
Treasury.
I'm not
you may assert there's no waste in HHS.
That, Stephen.
She's like, I didn't say that. Oh my God, this is embarrassing.
I don't think anyone.
Then why are you not celebrating these cuts? If you agree there is waste, if you agree there is abuse, if you agree there is corruption, why are you not celebrating the cuts, the reforms that are being instituted?
Before she answers, let me just say, it's obvious. This is not waste, fraud, and abuse. That's a lie. This is not corruption. That's a lie. Elon and Trump are looking at agencies they personally don't like, and they're illegally defunding them and deleting them. Let's understand that. Any outlet that describes this as they're looking to do cost cutting, it's waste, fraud, and abuse they're going after. Explain to me how dismantling the entire Department of Education is getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. Nobody in their right mind can make that argument. Explain to me how getting rid of the entire Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the anti-scam police, how is that getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse? It's literally the opposite. There will be more fraud now that you got rid of the fraud police. Explain to me how it's getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse to cut, 60%, 70% of the NIH grant money, which is being used for stuff like cancer research for kids. How is that getting rid of? It's not getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. You are anti-government fundamentalists, and you just don't want the government to be involved in a plethora of areas, and so you're illegally and unconstitutionally deleting these things. And then when people give you specific examples of specific individuals who lost their jobs wrongly and illegally according to that specific law, you go, "Why you being histrionic, bro? Waste, fraud, and abuse, bro." If your reaction to all this is just to scream waste, fraud, and abuse, you have thought through this and you've crafted arguments way worse. And you've done so little research and it's so porous. The arguments are so pathetic that it's embarrassing. It's humiliating. In other words, you should have tried to come up with a better line of bullshit. And this is why he's raising his voice. This is why he's yelling, is because he knows he's got nothing. He's got nothing. Waste, fraud, abuse. Okay, but this guy in no way, shape, or form, the person she's talking about, this wasn't waste, this wasn't fraud, this wasn't abuse, and it was an illegal firing. But waste, fraud, and abuse.
Every day that no action is taken, the entire
Stephen,
salaries of American workers.
She sunned his ass. Stephen, let's calm down. That's giving off like elementary school teacher talking to the rowdy child.
That are taxed disappear forever.
Stephen, let's calm down.
We're not
having a debate.
There's no reason
about.
God, they're so pathetic. We're not having a debate. I'm just reading some facts to you and trying to get your reaction.
Whether there are places.
You are clearly trying to debate me, and I will be as excited as I want to be about the fact.
Look, I got to be honest. I really do feel bad for the entire young generation that got their masculinity cues from people like Donald Trump or Andrew Tate, right? Or jackasses like this. Guys, these are the least masculine men of all time, right? I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. These people are embarrassing. They're pathetic. All they know how to do is deflect and obfuscate and lie. And what's the real manly thing? Just tell the truth. Just tell the truth. He doesn't have that in him. He's doing spin for the administration for an indefensible action.
We are saving Americans billions of dollars, that we are ending the theft and waste and grift and corruption, that we are stopping American taxpayer dollars from subsidizing a rogue federal bureaucracy that has been relentlessly weaponized against the American people.
Oh my God. All right, so let's actually get to some of those specific claims, y'all. Let's get to some of those specific claims. Here's Doge in practice. There was a disabled Army veteran who has 4 kids and did 3 tours overseas. He was fired from his job at a Bronx VA hospital. This is what's actually happening. How is that waste? How is that fraud? How is that abuse? It's utter nonsense. Here's another one for you. Ready? Because of Elon's Doge cuts, there was a medical horror story, and this was in a court affidavit. So a U.S. aid employee was stationed overseas. His pregnant wife was not medevaced for an emergency incident because of directives from Washington. A senator had to get involved to try to reverse it, but it was too late. This is the reality of what they're doing. Instead, he's got to get up there and literally every response is waste, fraud, abuse, waste, fraud, abuse. You have to realize how stupid you sound, man. And I want to say this one more time. Shout out to that CNN host. She did a great job. But the media needs to wake the fuck up, for real, and understand. Do not refer to anything Elon is doing or Doge is doing or Trump is doing as cost-cutting or getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. By the way, we already have the inspectors general whose job it is to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse. That's already the case for them. And Trump fired all those people, okay? So that is pro-waste, fraud, and abuse. And we have the GAO, Government Accountability Office, whose job is to find waste, fraud, and abuse. And like, these are the people, they've been approved by Congress. So it is legal when the GAO and the inspectors general catch waste, fraud, and abuse. This has nothing to do with waste or fraud or abuse. If it did, Trump would have kept the inspectors general in there and they would have continued to do their job. Instead, fired all them, and they're going to take a sledgehammer to the GAO as well, as Elon pretends to cut waste, fraud, abuse, as he just goes on an ideological crusade, an anarcho-capitalist crusade to get rid of every functioning government agency. And they want to get rid of the administrative state. They want to get rid of the regulatory state because that is the only institution that has the ability to check the power and the wealth of the robber barons. That's what you need to understand. It is a selfish, piggy, greedy crusade. That's what they're on. And Stephen Miller here just absolutely humiliated himself trying to defend all of this with no argument in sight. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.